Hi everyone. So sorry to be starting this on a weird kind of recording, but I could not get some of my other ones to work on my computer, so here we are. And I figured the best way to do this was to honestly take a picture of it, so that would be easier for both of us to see, rather than me trying to move it around the screen or like you know. So this is Wonderland City. As you can see, it is made up of five different circular areas, which are like little small cities. The center actually has no residential uses really in it. Most of the residential is split into the four quadrants, I like to say, at the sides. The population size of this city is about 40,000 people. That's about 10,000 people for each quadrant, which is about 2 square miles. So that is what I've kind of populated for that. Overall, it's about 10 square miles, including the centerpiece. And actually, it's probably closer to around 11 square miles with the centerpiece and the surrounding interior portions. As you can see around the very edge, it looks like a border, but that is actually not a border. That is a train or railroad or passenger rail for this area. The main concept for this city is kind of one of my designs of I wanted it to be very pedestrian oriented and friendly. Yes, there are roads. There are also multi-use paths everywhere for them to use instead of roads, and all the roads are only 2 lanes because I think it is easier. That would make it more manufacturing use rather than everyday use instead. These people can just ride their bike, walk to work. That was the whole concept of this type of city. Um, so I put it in like a small area of Canada, kind of is where I'm thinking of, like a small river, as you can see, running through that can provide some port access over to maybe leading to the ocean or something like that. Um, So, as I said before, the residential is all set into the four quadrants. I wanted to keep kind of the center of the city because it's kind of like many cities connected to the center, and it's all makes up one big city, if that makes sense. Because we kind of get that concept sometimes in smaller areas. In Canada, there's a lot of neighborhoods that may make up some of these areas. So that's kind of what the idea of that was. Um, for this one, though, I wanted to maintain the center as more of the entertainment, the big focus. There's a hospital if it's needed. Yes, there's medical clinics and stuff like that, and offices like that in the quadrants. But if you have a major accident or anything like that, you would want to go here. Um, there are hotels in the center, an amusement park, or some kind of. You could do something else besides that. That's just an idea. I also added in a shopping complex in the center. That would be the most major one, like a mall or like some mom and pop stores. If you're familiar with kind of like Broadway at the beach in Myrtle Beach, kind of something like that, I was thinking. I also added in offices on that. That is where some of the main offices will be for like the manufacturing industrial areas because they're going to be near the center because they want to be near the port areas, as you can see that line up next to the river there. So, in the center of all the quadrants is an industrial type use. It can be some type of manufacturing. I'm not saying it has to be heavy or light industrial, just some kind of manufacturing industrial is in the center of every city, providing jobs close to work, close to home. So it would be very nice, kind of idea. I know from reading a lot that manufacturing and industrial areas can have some pollution or negative effects, so I actually put open space kind of around all of those because I didn't want a house sitting right on top of those. I feel like that's not really a very um, great use for the time. Um, so in the manufacturing areas, the first one outside of that is apartments, kind of a multifamily for me. I thought that would be the best kind of use for that area because it provides still tons of open space in that. One of the main concepts of the city is to provide a lot of open space, green space, places where kids can run, things like that, because we want to give them the opportunity for that. And if you don't provide the opportunity, or there's nothing for them to take from it. Next, outside of that, as you see, there is a roadway that I like to call the neighborhood street. They have a multi-use 10-foot path on the back side of the street, on the side of the, on at least one side of the street behind the curb, to keep bicyclists, pedestrians, whoever, safe as they are traveling. Also, the next section out of that transforms more into a mixed use kind of residential for me. I have it more as like triplex, quadplex, townhomes, kind of those multifamily types, and then also next to single family. So it's a mix of both, and they could be single family or duplex. I kind of left it open for mix here. I think the best way to do that would be to honestly put in deed restrictions that you couldn't have the same on top of each other over and over and over again. So you wouldn't have like a whole row of like single family or a subdivision of single family houses, because as we know, they are a drain on infrastructure. I also have a train station at each quadrant that leads around to the main quadrants. As you notice, the train station is not connected to the center city. And the reason for that is because we really want that to be more of a pedestrian rail, more for like residential use and stuff like that. We don't want it to be like turn it into a manufacturing use or anything like that. And the center of every quadrant, the manufacturing, as you can see, there is a road leading it straight out to the center, because that is where the ports are. That is where all of that stuff is going to go. One thing I also wanted to point out, the roadways are not straight in the center, as you see. The reason behind that is I have found it terrible when you have a huge intersection in the middle of a city where everybody can come in. That can cause a lot of traffic and problems. I kind of wanted to split up the roads. As you know, topography and things like that can kind of throw a little hitch in things sometimes. So maybe the roads aren't always straight. There's not straight roads all the time. So that's why my roads are not straight. They're coming to different intersections and moving people throughout different areas of the city. I wanted there to be multi-use paths on the main roadways that lead out of the quadrants. They're 15 foot to allow even more pedestrian crossing. That way to kind of limit the vehicle use, because as we know, that is a emissions problem that we are having. The kind of idea behind this really kind of came from another kind of concept that was created, like Garden City kind of ideas, which I've done some research on those before. I wanted to still bring some of the Garden City in there, but I wanted to keep it from having the negative impacts that Garden City had, where they had, just single family residential. Only the rich people wanted to move there, and then who's going to work? Nobody. This is a good mix of it, and I think using maybe those deed restrictions, which I do not always agree with using deed restrictions, but in this case, I think deed restrictions could help limit the amount of type of residential that could go into these areas. I kind of drew like a little lake at one of them. I mean, there might be an opportunity where maybe one's near a mountain. It was kind of my thought of like, if it's in the Canadian area, I wasn't going to assign it a specific province or anything like that. That there might be a lake, there might be, these natural resources like that nearby. So there may be even more opportunity for some of these manufacturing, these ports and stuff like that. But yeah, and then my outer edge of these quadrants finishes up with multi-tenant kind of flex spaces. Like it has doctor's office, dentist office, medical offices, grocery stores, convenience stores, and I made sure to put one like kind of in the kind of more towards the center a little bit, so that everybody could reach also for like a grocery store, convenience store, stuff, something like that. So they're not having to go so far out of their way just to go to the store. Like I said, everything has multi-use pass, because I want to emphasize the need for more pedestrian walking and stuff like other foreign cities have. Another thing I noticed as I have finished up this assignment is I didn't allow for schools anywhere. So I think one of my options would be to probably move that one of those multi-tenant buildings kind of areas down for each quadrant, and instead make it a school multi different types of schools in that area. That way, it could be kind of centralized in a way to each quadrant. Um, so, some things I wanted to also talk about is the weather patterns here would be obviously, you would have 4 seasons and stuff like that, but might get a bit chillier in the winter, so that would be something we need to be aware of. Pretty mild weather though, so it shouldn't really be any issues. Living and working in the city, I think I would have to work in the center at maybe probably one of the offices and then go back to the residential. Probably, honestly, if I had the option to use the multi-use path and a bicycle, I would do that because there are not a lot of options, even in the cities that I live in, have lived in, for that. So I would really like to see something like that happen. But I think that is about it. If you have any questions or anything, please reach out to me. Thank you. Bye.